Hello, Leonard, and how are you today? I welcome you to today's class. Today we'll be looking at a topic which I believe you have heard about, and this topic is a very interesting one. Which, after going through this topic, you will understand the nature of what it takes for an economy to grow, and you will be able to see clearly situation at home using Nigeria as a case study and what is wrong with our own country? Why has our own country not been able to also do the needful to be able to also experience growth? So, as you can see on the slide, we'll be looking at four countries and what they did to experience economic growth. Today, um, they are classified as high income country and in some cases even first world country because of the level of development that took place in these four nations that we'll be talking about. Altogether, we call them the four Asian tigers. The four Asian tigers. Looking at them, number one, as you can see, is South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore. They are called four Asian tigers. We'll be looking at the economic lesson from these four Asian tigers: Japan, Europe, and America. So we'll be using some of these countries as a case study, and I'll be relating it to Nigeria as well. Relating Nigeria as well. So these are the maps, or sorry, the flag of these nations of the world. So when you see these flags, you should know what they stand for. And this is the map of the world. Now, this Asian tiger, we will see them somewhere around this area, somewhere around this area. Remember that this is Africa, this is South America, okay? This is North America. We have Australia here, we have Africa here, we have Canada here. So we'll be dwelling more on this region and what they did to experience that economic growth, what they did to experience that economic growth. Of course, we all know that this region is highly developed. Canada is the first world country, followed by America. This region are classified as the first world country. While a lot of countries here are classified as third world country. Also here in Africa, a lot of them are classified as third world country. But here we have a mixture of um, first world country and second world country. Here, Australia is classified as first world country. So we're looking at what make a country first world or second world or third world country, as the case may be. So, as I said, our topic will be Asian tigers, where we'll be looking at the four countries and what they did to experience growth. So, when we talk about Asian tigers, another name for them is Asian dragons or the Asian miracle. This refers to the term used to explain what happened among these four nations of the world. These four nations of the world are classified as the third world country in the 1960s, but something happened to them. With good policy and with good government, they were able to turn around their economy, moving from the first world country to second world country, and for some of them, they moved to the first world country. They are all classified as third world country, including Nigeria in the 1960s. But as I've said, with good policy and good government on ground, they were able to move their economy from being a third world country economy to second world country. And for some of them, they did not stop at being a second world country. They moved to a first world country. So we classify them as a newly industrial countries, newly industrial countries. So they did a lot to move from a less developed country to a middle income developed country. And for some of them, they moved to an high income developed country. So, what is their success story? It has really caused a lot of discussion in the 90s among economists all over the world. It was a surprise. It was a miracle. That's why it is called Asian miracle. It was a miracle. No country of the world has ever done it. Within the space of about 15 years, down to 15 to 20 years, they turned their economy around. What should have taken um, 50 years to do, 70 years to do for countries like America to move from one level of growth to another. They were able to do it within 15 to 16 years. So how did they do it? And what can we as a country, Nigeria, learn from these four Asian tigers? So as I've said, it's all about development. Now there are some data here we'll be looking at what caused this miracle. We're looking at some of the data and how they go about it. But let's just look at a brief statistic about this country. For Republic of Korea, their population is 51 million as of 2014. Now HDI, their HDI is 0.89, which is very high, very, very high. Now, when we talk about HDI, we are talking about Human Development Index. Human Development Index. It was introduced by United Nations Development Program, UNDP. It is a form of indices to rank which country is doing fine and which country is not doing fine. So as I've said, is like a measure to measure which country is moving high and which country is not moving high. And it has about three indicators to know under your HDI, that's Human Development Index. It has about three indicators, and these indicators are used to measure if a country is developing or not. And the first indicator is what we call life expectancy at birth. Life expectancy at birth. The second is educational attainment. Educational attainment. Why the third is standard of living. The third is decent standard of living. Now, these three indicators are calculated to get what we have, what we call the HDI, Human Development Index. Now, it ranks from 0 to 1. It ranks from 0 to, to 1. Now, you see some countries like Norway, as of 2004, uh, countries that you are not even, you don't know that they have good standard of living there. You don't normally hear that name. They are the one doing fine when it comes to human development index. When it comes to good standard of living, when it comes to educational attainment in those countries, when it comes to life expectancy in those countries. Country like Norway is doing fine. Rank from, I think their rank is about zero point 0.9. Countries like Australia is doing fine. Their rank is about 0.94, thereabout. Countries like uh, America, Japan, United Kingdom, France, they are doing fine. They are in the region of zero point 0.9. So we classify them as high income countries because they have a high human capital, human development. We have those countries that fall between zero point 0.7 down to zero point 0.5. They are classified as medium human development. You see countries like China there, countries like India there, while the low human development, very low, that's they rank from zero point 0.4 down to zero point 0.1. Now you see countries like Nigeria, Kenya. A lot of them are African countries. A lot of them are African countries. Now, this measure is not stable. It's not stable. As they experience more economic development, as they try to grow these indicators in their country in terms of education, in terms of good standard of living, in terms of improving the quality of life that people live in those countries, uh, investing more in their health sector, and that will go a long way to improve the life expectancy in those countries. It affects their ranking in this HDI. It affects their ranking. So you see some countries moving forward. As at now, China has left the medium human development category down to high human development category. So, but you see some countries that are up there still coming down. Okay, but it is very difficult to see African countries among the high human development index or the medium development human development index. It's very difficult. The country that you can see is uh, South Africa. South Africa is doing fine. South Africa is doing fine. But apart from South Africa, it's very difficult to see. Majority of the African countries you see are more in the low human development index. And that is why it's a surprise because these nations of the world we are talking about today, the Asian tigers, are initially classified as a low uh, human development index rating. Their index before, as at 1960, was between zero point 0.4 to zero point 0.1, was between zero point 0.4 to zero point 0.1. But within a space of 15 years, they changed their story. Now, as you can see, for Republic of Korea, look at their Human Development Index, very high. So they are classified as high uh, developed index, high development human index. Okay, so you can classify them as the first world country. Why? Because of the high human development index they have, 0.8. Now, down to Singapore. Singapore has zero point 0.9. Look at Hong Kong. Hong Kong have zero point 0.8, and then Taiwan also have zero point 0.8. These are very high. So it shows that they are doing fine. They are doing fine. Now look at their uh, GDP. That is gross domestic product. When we talk about gross domestic product, as you can remember, if we are talking about the monetary value of goods and services produced within a country in a given year. Now look at the gross domestic product of Korea, Republic of Korea. Look at it in trillions. In trillions now, over $1 trillion. Look at that of Singapore, 297 billion, over $297 billion. Now look at that of Hong Kong, over 400 billion. Now and look at that of Taiwan, over 500 billion. So these countries are doing fine. So this is telling us what is happening internally, what they are generating internally through production of goods and services by starting from the primary sector down to the secondary sector down to the tertiary sector. So they are doing fine. How did they do it? That's the question that the world is asking. How did they do it? And countries like Nigeria and the continent of Africa also want to benefit from them. So as an economic student, we want to know how they did it. What you have taken them 50 years to do took them 15 years. So the question is, it's really a miracle. How did they do it? Now look at this graph. From 1984, you agree with me that their per capita income is low, okay? It's low. Look at it, very low compared to other countries, other regions like Middle East and North Africa, Latin America, even Sub-Saharan Africa. Is doing fine. Nigeria was doing fine more than them before in 1984. Look at that. Okay, they are very low. Their per capita income is very just 90. While Sub-Saharan Africa is about 100. But look at it. They just started growing. A steady growth. A steady growth. And look at that. 1984, still growing 1989, growing 1994, growing 1999, and since then they have been growing. They have been growing. The Asian country, these Asian tigers have been experiencing growth. But look at Sub-Saharan Africa, where Nigeria is. Before, they were higher than these Asian tigers, as that their per capita income is 100. Remember that Nigeria and a lot of these African nations have oil. Now look at it. Instead of them to grow, they're just declining, going down. Now, even they went as down as about 90. And as at 2004, they started experiencing growth, but not compared to that of the Asian tigers. So the world is marveled at how this Asian tiger did it. So within the space of 1980, down to 2009, look at 1984, their per capita income is 90, and as at 2009, you agree with me that the per capita income is over 240, over 240. That is over 100%, over 100% increase in their growth rate. So let's look at how these Asian tigers were able to achieve this. So that is the map of Hong Kong. That's the map of Hong Kong, and if you don't know it, that's how it looks like. The map of Hong Kong and the cities in Hong Kong. This is the map of South Korea and cities there as well. So in terms of landmass, you can't compare them to Nigeria. Nigeria have a big landmass, but look at their landmass and the cities also in South Korea. This is the map of Singapore. That's the map of Singapore. Okay, and the cities also in Singapore. Now this is the map of Taiwan. In terms of landmass, it's not that big. And look at the cities in Taiwan as well. But compare these Asian tigers to that of Nigeria. Look at Nigeria, look at the cities there, and look at the landmass. So, in terms of landmass, you agree with me that Nigeria has a bigger landmass than them. Okay? So, that the country has a big landmass does not mean they will experience growth and development if they can use it effectively. If they can use it effectively. Okay, so let's look at a brief history about these Asian tigers. Now, these Asian tigers were known for maintaining extremely high growth rates and rapid industrialization. So between early 1960s and 1990, they've experienced what we call high growth rate and high level of industrialization. So between 1960 down to 1990, even down to the 21st century, these four nations of the world had advanced into a high income economy. They've advanced into high income economy. Now they have their strength. They have their strength. Now Hong Kong and Singapore are known for the hub of finance. When you talk about money, they are world leading international financial centers. Okay, so their institution there, their financial institution is very very strong, very strong. So that's what they're known for. Why South Korea and Taiwan are known for technology. When we talk about manufacturing, talking about technology, all this your Samsung, iPhone is from them. They are into making chips that are used by these multinationals in America to develop other advanced technology. So, so your South Korea and Taiwan, they have their strength. They have what we call their comparative cost advantage, which is in the area of manufacturing technology. Okay, that's their strength. Technology is their strength. While Hong Kong and Singapore are known for their strength is their financial institution. Their strength is their financial institution. Now, the third thing you need to know about them and how they experience that growth is this: they invested in their industries. They invested a lot in their industries, and they invested in industries that are able to compete favorably with other nations of the world. So what did they do? They invested in both small and medium scale business in their country by giving them low interest rates. I remember the topic under money. If interest rate is low, investors will come to the bank to borrow money. And once investors come to the bank to borrow money, they can use such money to acquire capital. So there will be increase in capital accumulation, which will go a long way in encouraging productivity in that country. So what Asian Tiger did was to support their industries, both the medium and the small scale industries, both the small and the medium scale enterprises in their country. They supported them with loans, government loans at low interest rates, especially industries that are exporting items. Because you agree with me that export is an injection, while importation is a linkage. Okay, so they invested a lot into exportation. Okay, industry that can export items to other nations of the world. So they are selling, and as they are selling goods to other nations of the world, more money is coming into their economy. Now, such money that is coming into their economy is used to boost the social amenities, boost infrastructures, and invest in education and some other block of lives, economic block of lives that will increase their economy and better the life of their citizens. And that's why they were able to achieve that high level of HDI you saw. So the four of them, as I said, invested more in themselves. Okay, they invested more in their medium, small and medium scale companies by giving them government loan at low interest rates. Apart from that, they invested in education. We can't overemphasize the importance of education, be it formal, be it or informal. Okay, so but they invested majority in education, and but he said the political system were non-democratic and relatively authoritarian during the early years of the development. So it was something like a democratic nature where a group will come to decide before something is done. So it's a form of command, a form of authoritarian system where the government decide what happens. Because these people in the government were visionaries. They know what they want, and they are there to serve the citizens of the, their country. And that's why they invested a lot in education, from primary education down to secondary education, even down to vocational education, technical education, just to make sure that their citizens are skilled in uh, providing what the citizens of the country need in the long run. Number five, they invested also in US bonds. They invested heavily in US bonds, but that later caused them problem. That later caused them a problem in the long run. But in the early stage, they invested in US bonds. And not only that, they encourage public and private savings. As you know, if you look at the virtuous cycle of poverty, if your income is high, definitely your savings will be high. Now, what is saved is what is invested. So, if your savings is high, then investment will be high. And once investment is high, definitely capital formation will be high. And once your capital formation is high, productivity will be high. And if productivity is high, then income will also be high. So that's the virtuous cycle. So it's a cycle. So because they were able to invest a lot in their citizens, invest more in education, invest more in small and medium scale enterprises, that leads to increase in exportation. And as they export more, more money is coming to the economy, so they were able to save more. And as they were able to save more, they were able to invest more. But the Asian financial crisis that happened affected a lot of them as a result of a non-performance loan, or we call toxic loan. These are loans collected by some individuals or some firms, but they're not serviced. They are not serviced. So we call them non-performing loans or toxic loans. So it affected a lot of um, a lot of firms. Government gave them money, but they were not able to return back the money. No, apart from that, the activities of the speculators affected the stock exchange market, which also led to crisis in in their economies. But they were able to bounce back. They were able to bounce back from this crisis. As you all know, that no economy will go without experiencing one crisis or the other. But these Asian tigers, Singapore, Taiwan, South Korea, they were Hong Kong were affected, but they were able to bounce back from these non-performing loans, from attacks from speculators, and shocks from the stock exchange market, which affected their currency. But in the long run, they were able to pull out. Okay, so the seventh thing you need to know about them is, as I've said earlier, is the financial crisis that they experienced in 1997. And of course, South Korea was the worst hit among them, but they were able to manage the economy and tripled their per capita income. So one thing that really helped them is abundance of cheap labor. Yes, their population is very, very high. Population is very, very high. Some of their population is as high as running into close to a billion. As you know that China is one of the most populous nations in the world, over 1.4 billion in terms of population. So that region have what we call cheap labor because there's always migration, people moving from one part of this country to another, looking for greener pasture. Okay, so the Asian tigers have access to abundance of cheap labor in that region, and that really helped them to concentrate more on using labor-intensive methods so that we'll be able to engage everyone. Okay, move every family forward. Of course, I'm not saying they did not use machines, but they used more of labor-intensive method because of the level of population in those areas, and they make use of them. And by so doing, with the level of education these workers have, they were able to produce more. So their marginal productivity went up. Their marginal productivity went up. So let's look at how individually what they did. We're starting with Hong Kong. Number one, rapid industrialization driven by export. So was the focus of Hong Kong. Rapid industrialization driven by export. So they went into exportation, move out industry that could produce and export, invest more in them, and they were able to produce and export items to the nation of the world. So what the government did for them as well is to lower tax they pay. So government reduce the tax these industries are paying so that they will to make more money available to them. Number one, it will reduce the cost of production. Number two, it will make the price of such goods they produce more competitive in the international market. Let me repeat that again. If the cost of production is reduced as a result of low taxation, it reduces the price of that commodity. Now, if you have to sell that commodity in the international market, your price will be very competitive with other nations of the world that their cost of production is high. Okay, so they did that for their small and medium scale enterprises by reducing the tax they pay, and they encourage free trade. They encourage free trade, what we call trade liberalization. Not only that, service-based economy in the 1980s, service-based economy, meaning they focus more on the tertiary production stage, where it involved more of a commercial services, more of commercial services. So they invested more in commercial services. And that's between 1961 and 1997, their GDP grew, look at that, 180 times. Their GDP grew 180 times. Those are what we call larger re-export center. So it was a center when goods come into their country, they export it on that country. And they, as a middleman, they made a lot of money from that. So this was the focus of Hong Kong. And let's look at South Korea. South Korea also invested heavily. I said they depend heavily depending on international trade. They depend heavily on international trade. Now, how did they do that? They do that by using what we call the outward looking strategy in the early 60s. Now, when we talk about outward looking strategy, we're talking about a strategy based on openness of their economy, openness of their border. And once you use this strategy, meaning you want to involve more in international trade, and by so doing, uh, they involve in what we call free trade by removing trade barriers from any form of trade restriction was removed, and in some cases, they remove subsidies on domestic firms and put on hold or put on ground the blocks, economic blocks of lives, meaning infrastructures, healthcare, security, good roads, were all on ground to encourage foreign direct investment into their country. So they make sure that the ease of doing business in their country is encouraging. So going to South Korea to do business is encouraging, and that's why you see that they have a good relationship with countries like the US. Yeah, because the ease of doing business in that country is encouraging. So that led to a lot of foreign direct investment coming to their country. A lot of people coming to their country to do business. And when when large national conglomerates from other nations of the world are coming to your country, when multinationals are coming to your country to invest, it creates jobs opportunities for people in that country. So it's really helped them. The outward looking approach or strategy really helped them, and government also have their different initiatives just to make sure that the economy uh, grow, and they were able to achieve all this and were among the high income countries. Singapore invested more. It's a foreign direct investment and state led drive. That's one of their strengths. So they encourage foreign direct investment in their country. Not only that, so one of the least corrupt countries of the world. Of course, that's the problem we're having in Nigeria: corruption. Corruption. Uh, One thing about Singapore is they don't condone, they don't entertain any level of corruption. Not only that, they have one of the highest skilled workforce among the Asian tigers, one of the highest skilled workforce. They depend heavily on export and refined imported goods. So they depend on export as well. Also, imports, they say refined imported goods. Yeah, so once the goods are imported, they refine it and also export it back. And apart from that, tourism was also their strength, most especially medical tourism. So when you talk about the health sector, it's superb. That's why we see developed nations of the world going there for one health issue or the other. So these are their strength. This is what they did to make sure that their country experience growth and development. Now, for Taiwan, just like we have the 7 point agenda in Nigeria, and we have Vision 2020. Also, Taiwan has a 19-point program for economic and financial reform, which really helped them. Not only that, they got help from an institution called United States Agency for International Development. United States Agency for International Development. Now, this agency invested massively in infrastructure in their country. They invested massively in communication in their country. They also invested massively in the educational system, which really helped them. Which really helped them. Not only that, Taiwan also got involved in what we call regularized market control. When we talk about regularized market control, we're talking about the price system, where the market is left for the forces of demand and supply to control. So government is not involved. There's a removal of government control in this system. The system is left to operate on its own. So we have more of a private individuals coming up to own business in Taiwan. So it encourage private ownership and control of resources. So this really help the Taiwan nation when talking about technology, cars. Okay, this some of the big multinational they are owned by individual families who have invested in their business or in their conglomerates, and this has really helped the economy of Taiwan because of the policy they introduced, which is trade liberalization or market liberalization, leaving the market for forces of demand and supply to control without government intervention. Okay, so breaking it down, uh, these are some of the policies bringing the four Asian tigers together now. These are some of the policies they invested in: export-oriented policy and strong development policy. Okay, so they invested more in export-oriented policy. They worked on their strengths and export them to other nations of the world. Only they worked on industry that have comparative advantage over the others. Okay, so what is their strength? Uh, this is their strength, technology is their strength, and that is what they dwelled on and export to other nations of the world. Two, they invested in the physical and human capital development. We can overemphasize the importance of human capital development in these nations of the world. That is why they took education very serious. Said, in fact, in 1960, is far more exceed investment level in any other country at similar level of development. So they invested a lot of money in both human and in their physical capital, which in the long run helped to grow not only their GDP but their per capita income. Three, education. They invested in education, both the cognitive level and they have high literacy level. And for example, South Korea in particular had achieved a secondary education enrollment rate of 88% by 1987. So they invested a lot in education to increase the cognitive skills of their citizens. And that's really, education really played a major role in the Asian tiger miracle. Now, they created what we call a stable macroeconomic environment. When we talk about macroeconomic environment, we're talking about five policies that are grand to make sure that the economy is stable. Um, one of such policy is international trade, making sure that they invested a lot in international trade. Not only that, they experienced price stability. Um, these are good. These are macroeconomic environment that help the economy to move forward. So he said they manage their budget deficit. When we talk about budget deficit, we are talking about when estimated government revenue is lower than projected expenditure. So external debt and exchange rate were stable, were stable and healthy, and which prevented them from falling into recession. And they keep their deficit at a very low rate. Of course, growing the economy, you spend money, but they make sure that whatever they are spending is for the good of the society. The level of corruption is low, so there's not like embezzlement. Okay, but they try as possible to keep the deficit at a very low rate. For some of them, external debt was not even existing at all. That is for Hong Kong, Singapore, okay, where they failed to borrow from abroad. They did not borrow from abroad at all, apart from South Korea that borrowed heavily from abroad. But it was able to sustain that through high export level. Okay, so it was able to sustain that through high export level. So one thing is for you to borrow money from other nations of the world. Another thing is for you to be able to use the money effectively. So the problem is not borrowing. The problem is what are you using the money borrowed for? So if you use the money borrowed to invest in capital project in your country, to invest in the infrastructures in your country, yes, you will reap in the future. To pay the money back will not be difficult. But if you borrow money to pay salaries or to run your recurrent expenditure, it becomes a problem. But you borrow money uh, to finance your capital projects, it's good. In the long run, you get it back. Okay, but not borrowing like in the case of Nigeria. Any money we borrow is more of a payment of salary or running our recurrent expenditure. That is not good enough. That is not good enough. So their deficit budget was kept at a very low rate. External debt was very low among the three of the Asian tigers, apart from South Korea, who borrowed heavily but was able to sustain that borrowing with money gotten from exportation. So this is a pie chart showing the share of the world GDP in projecting now to 2015. You agree with me that the Asian nations have more than 51%, more than 51%. So they are really doing well. Look at that. North America 15, Latin America 10. We have Middle East and North Africa 3%. We have Sub-Saharan Africa, where Nigeria belongs, 2%, and the rest of the world 1%. So the Asian country has taken over 50% of the world gross domestic product of the world, which is in trillions. So that will tell you that the sky is just the beginning for these nations of the world if they continue to grow in this pattern. Now, as of 2020, countries like India is doing fine. Now, watch out for India in the next future. You'll be surprised that if India, the way they are going, give them the next 10 to 15 years with right policy on ground, India will also be one of the first world country very soon, and they will be competing favorably with countries like Japan, China, and some of these Asian tigers. Remember, all of them are in this region. They are in Asia, and they are all doing fine. So another thing they did, another strategy they put in place was their exchange rate. So the Asian tigers actively manage their exchange rates. So when we talk about exchange rate, we have two types. We have the floating exchange rate and the fixed exchange rate. So, and what is exchange rate? It is the rate at which the domestic currency is exchanged for the foreign currency. That is what we call exchange rate. So, your exchange rate will become more powerful if you export more and import less. If you export more and import less, your exchange rate, your currency will become very powerful. Your currency will appreciate because more money is coming into your country and less money is going out. So this allows their export to become relatively cheap and in high demand. Yes, meaning if cost of production is cheap, price of goods will also be cheap in their country because their exchange rate is favorable to them. So the cost of doing business in their country is very cheap. And with that, the price of the product also in the international market will be cheap. Definitely, people want to buy their product. And as more people buy their product, they export more. As more people demand for their currency, the value of their currency will go up. As more people demand for their currency, the value of their currency will go up. And this has really helped the Asian tigers to become one of the world power today. In terms of their currency is doing fine. Their currency is doing fine. Number six, development strategy they employ is they have the culture of hard work and innovation. So they have that culture, they embed that culture in their citizens. So they work hard, they have the culture of working hard and being innovative and creative in, in what they do. Number seven, development strategy employed is to fight against corruption. Corruption was banned and they spelled out harsh punishment, even down to death of individuals caught, especially those people in the public sector, caught stealing funds. Uh, some of the punishment are as harsh as death sentence on them. So it stamped out there were campaigns against corruption. So they stamped out corruption in the mindset of their citizens. So they worked on the value system of their citizens. So the value system of that citizen is working hard, not getting money using the short means. So irrespective of your social and financial status, once you are an offender, you are caught embezzling public funds. There are harsh penalties melted out on that individual. And this give them a sense of caution, especially those people that are going into the public office. They are going there to serve and not to embezzle public funds because it is believed that if a public servant steals money, is stealing from the country at large, money meant for health, if stolen, leads to the death of a lot of people in the country. So, and that those are the consequences. So, if you are going there to serve, you know you are serving the people and not to embezzle money. So, this was an outlook, a forecast, um, 2016 to 2020, the growth rate of these Asian tigers, the growth rate of these Asian tigers. And of course, with the coronavirus that surfaced in 2020 has really affected their growth rate. Even with that, they are doing fine. Countries like Taiwan, they were able to manage the coronavirus cases in their country because of the level of technology they have. They were able to manage. Countries like South Korea, Hong Kong, South Korea were able to manage the level of coronavirus, the spread of coronavirus in their country because of the level of technology and the level of growth they've experienced. Okay, so now these are the outlook of the growth rate in these four Asian tigers um, from 2016 down to 2020 by three different organizations. By three different organizations. We have IMF there, we have a consensus, and we have a CUE there. So, I'll take us to lesson. What are the lessons we as a country, as Nigeria now, can learn from these Asian tigers? What can we learn from them? Number one, that Nigerian should focus more on export policies, policies that will encourage us to export more, most especially where we have comparative cost advantage, which is agriculture, rather than solely focusing on production of oil. Of course, the Buhari administration is doing well uh, to try to diversify the economy of the country from just oil, because before then, even before now, we are a mono economy, and the main source of fund for Nigeria is crude oil. Crude oil. We've neglected agriculture uh, when we discovered oil in Nigeria. So, but the Buhari administration is working to revive the agricultural sector. Almost every state in Nigeria now is keying into agriculture now, giving loans to farmers and giving them lands to farm on. So, but we want more. We want them to do more in this area because that's our strength. That's what we have a comparative cost advantage in. Imagine Nigeria feeding the world. How sweet would that be? And we not only exporting raw materials, but we've added value to those raw materials. So we're exporting finished goods. So we're the one feeding the world. If that's our goal, we have the land mass. We have the land mass. So what we just need to do, if our strength is not technology, why can't we just import technology? Okay, that's our strength rather than borrowing money and paying salary. Why can't we borrow money and import technology that will grow agriculture? And our goal, our focus should be that Nigeria should feed the world. So, which we can do. So, if that's our focus, of course, that's really helped us. So, what we can learn from the Asian tiger is this: we should work on our strength, which is agriculture. We should develop our strength, which is agriculture. Okay, so if you are borrowing money at all, it should be for agriculture. Two, Nigerian educational system should be stabilized through policy. Okay, where you have a ASU strike, ASU go on strike, and a lot of closures of in the tertiary institution is not encouraging. Even some of our school scheme of work down to our curriculum is not encouraging. It's more of uh, book, not skill acquisition. We focus more on certificates in Nigeria. So our focus should change from just focusing more on mere certificates to skill acquisition. So the curriculum of the educational sector in Nigeria should be geared towards skill acquisition, talking about uh, coding, talking about technology, talking about AI. So we should focus more on this area because that's the way forward. That is what the world is going into now. AI, technology, that what the world is going into now. So whatever we are doing, whatever we are teaching in schools, okay, we couple with agriculture, should focus more on this area rather than focusing more on just theories and at the end we'll be given a certificate and not on skill. That should change. Change. The third thing we need to learn from them is to encourage savings. We should encourage savings. A financial and banking system that favors savings and encourage business growth. So we should encourage savings, private savings should be encouraged to improve future investment. I told you that if savings is more, then investment is more because money that is saved is invested. When you go to the bank to save your money, investors like Dangote will come to the bank to borrow the money. So if we save more, there will be more money available for investors to come and borrow to invest. And if they borrow more for investment, they'll be able to use such money to buy capital goods that can be used for further production of goods and services. So if you have more capital goods, uh, there will be high level of productivity in Nigeria. And once there's high level of productivity in Nigeria, focusing on our strength now, uh, definitely our exportation will be high. And once our exportation is high, there will be more income coming into the country, more income coming to the country. The fourth thing we need to learn from them is to properly and effectively manage our resources. Because it's embarrassing when you hear in Nigeria uh, animals swallowing money in the office, crocodiles swallowing money, snakes swallowing money, uh, gorillas swallowing money. It's embarrassing. The level of corruption in Nigeria is high. Is high. I will not be surprised if when the rating of corruption comes out by Amnesty International, and Nigeria might be the one of the first three most corrupt nation in the world, most corrupt nation in the world. So the government of Nigeria should do a lot to try to discourage corruption by introducing high harsh penalty on those offenders. On those offenders, if nobody is making a scapegoat, then the mindset will be when you go to the public office, you are just there, you are going there to embezzle money, which is a wrong mindset. A wrong mindset. The fifth thing we should do as a country, and that we can learn from the Asian tiger, is to have high number of domestic manufacturers in the country using our local made material. We should not depend solely on importing raw materials from other nations of the world. If we do that, then the price or the cost of production will be very, very high. So why can't we discourage importation of raw materials and use our locally made materials here to produce goods and services we want to produce? Because if we continue to import raw materials to produce goods and services, we'll be experiencing a balance of payment deficit, which is not good. So, and what is balance of payment deficit? It's a situation where your importation is more than your exportation, meaning more money is leaving the country than is coming in, which is a problem. So, in order to curb that or to reduce your balance of payment deficit, we should use more of our locally made materials to produce goods in Nigeria. We should source for materials here locally rather than importing raw materials from other nations of the world. Imagine we still import flour to make bread. It's not good enough. Why will we be using billions of naira to import flour to make bread when we have our own cassava flour here to make our bread. So if we don't get it right now, it's very difficult for us to leave the position of the third world nation that we are still in as of now. So we should patronize more of our locally made goods as well. Patronize more. So stop buying imported items. The more important items you buy, you are creating employment over there and unemployment in your own country. Because when you buy imported items, you are increasing the demand of those foreign companies. You are increasing their demand, and indirectly, you are increasing employment over there. Now, the same product you can buy within, same product you can source locally. So if you fail to source for it locally, indirectly, you are creating unemployment in your own country. And when there's unemployment, there'll be recession, there'll be increase in crime rates, and a lot of negative issues that will begin to creep up as a result of high level of unemployment in the country. So we should try as much as possible as a country to avoid importing everything under the heaven, which is source for items locally that we can use to replace imported goods. That will go a long way to help us. And this is the ranking of these four Asian tigers with one African country, which is Botswana, in 1960 to 1985. The question is this: what happened to Botswana? Botswana is now part of the four Asian tigers now. It's still among the low income earners, low income country or the third world country. Okay, so but initially it was ranked first, higher than that of the um, Asian tigers. But what happened? Not only Botswana, a lot of African countries in 1960 were doing fine, including Nigeria, were doing fine, were higher than the Asian tigers. But what happened? Corruption, high importation, okay, civil war. All these affected our nation. All this affected Africa as a nation and as a continent. So we should look inward and start to copy what these Asian tigers did. And if we can domesticate some of their policy in our own country, it will enable us to experience economic growth and development. Number six, proper management of our macroeconomic environment. And what are they? Price stability is very important. Public funds should be reduced to the lowest minimum. Uh, uh, Importation should be reduced and should export more, okay, so that we'll be able to control our deficits. And our exchange rate should be stable. The only way our exchange rate can be stable is when we export more and import less. Okay? The reason why our exchange rate is not stable or our currency is falling down is because we import more. And once we import more, we are demanding for dollar more. People are demanding for dollar and not naira again. And if you are demanding for dollar more than naira, meaning the value of dollar will be increasing, while the value of naira will be reducing. Why? Because you are demanding for more of foreign made goods rather than locally made goods. So the more we start to demand for locally made goods, you see that naira will begin to appreciate. Okay, and the more we get it right by government investing in our local industry, our medium, small and medium scale enterprises, investing heavily in them, especially those ones that have the capacity to compete favorably with other nations of the world. Okay, government invest in them well, reduce the tax, okay, they pay, okay, and give them loan at a very low interest rate. Monitor the activities as well to make sure that the money they collected are used for what they're supposed to be used for. Reduce the level of corruption in these industries. Change the value system of Nigerians. Before you know it, we'll also be there. Uh, we'll also be moving from being the third world country to the second world country and to the first world country. So I want you to try this classwork, and I want you to try this. What lesson, apart from what I've just mentioned, what other lesson can we learn from the Asian economy? And this assignment and the, this one is your classwork. This is your assignment. So I'll be getting this from you soon. Thank you very much.